Yeah, I was going to say.
Mayor, your microphone is not on.
Mayor, your microphone is not on.
The regular meeting for the Aurora City Council for June 28, 2023 is called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kaufman,
Here.
Councilmember Bergen. Here. Councilmember Coombs. Mayor Pro Tem Gardner.
Here.
Councilmember Drinsky.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Marcano.
Present.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Mario.
Present.
Councilmember Sundberg.
Here.
And Councilmember Zvonek.
Here.
There's a quorum.
Please join me in the invocation. O Lord our God and our Father, we come to you and we ask that you would look upon this particular gathering tonight and guide us in our decisions. Bless our city with honorable industry, sound education, and good government. Unite the community together, even though we come from different backgrounds. We pray that there be justice and peace in our city. Give City Council wisdom, direction, and sensitivity to the business and proceedings before us tonight. Hear us, therefore, as we commit this meeting to the health of this community. Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Motion for the approval of the minutes for June 12, 2023.
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilmember Marcano, seconded by
Zvonek.
Councilmember Zvonek to approve the minutes for June 12, 2023. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, call for the question.
Mayor Kaufman.
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
It's an internet connectivity issue.
Councilmember Mario.
Okay.
Yes.
The motion passes to adopt the June 12, 2023 City Council meeting minutes.
I don't know what's wrong with that.
Let me begin by the first one with State Senator Aurora. And we have the Vice Principal for Hinkley High School. If you could join me after this. Well, let me first read the proclamation, and then I'll turn it over to Senator Fields and the Vice Principal. Whereas, after a shooting at Hinkley High School parking lot on November 19, 2021, the Colorado Sentinel published a story about the incident on December 7, 2021, that not only included the names of the shooting suspects, but also the court-released affidavits, which listed the unredacted names of student witnesses willing to provide information about the subjects. And whereas, after their names were made public by the Colorado Sentinel, the student witnesses faced bullying from their peers, and some dropped out of school due to the backlash. One of those students was placed in protective custody because not only was he named as a witness, but his mother was named as well. And their family had their house shot up and threats were made to their lives. And whereas the city of Aurora has 2 Aurora Police Department school resource officers assigned to Hinckley High School, and after the names of the student witnesses were published, students no longer felt safe talking to the school resource officers and sharing information with them about potential problems at the high school. And whereas State Senator Rhonda Fields stepped forward and introduced and passed Senate Bill 2375, deletion of child's name from criminal justice records to protect child victims and child witnesses, identifying information from disclosure in public records to ensure privacy and safety. Now, therefore, I, Mike Coffin, Mayor of the City of Aurora, Colorado, do hereby honor and recognize Colorado State Senator Rhonda Fields and express gratitude for her years of dedicated leadership and public service to the City of Aurora and the state of Colorado. The witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Aurora, Colorado to be fixed on this 28th day of June, 2023. Mike Coffin, Mayor, Aurora, Colorado.
Yes. Well, thank you so very much, Mayor, for this proclamation. And I also want to thank the city council members and, of course, the assistant principal of Hinckley High School, who brought this to the attention to the police department and to the mayor. So this legislation that we passed and this proclamation is not about me. It's about relationships. It's about collaboratively working together. So once that outreach was made, the city attorney, I'm not quite sure if he's here, but he worked with the bill drafter to make sure that we had the language just right, to make sure that it was constitutionally valid. And we were able to pass legislation that the governor signed this year protecting child witnesses. When the mayor brought this to my attention, I had no idea that we weren't protecting children because we protect adults. So if someone is involved in, let's say, sexual assault, we redact their names. But for some reason, the kids that were involved in this school shooting at Hinckley, names were released to the media. And they were bullied and harassed because the media was rushing to print a story. And the ripple effect of exposing that child's name to the media caused a devastating impact that caused the student to drop out of school, to not want to participate, like you heard the mayor said. And it's just not the way we get justice. If when you come forward and you participate, and then these kinds of things happen. So, Mayor, I just want you to know that this is a huge honor, but it's about all of us coming together, listening to each other, and getting legislation passed. So as assistant principal, you can say, just because you raised your voice, we now have a law because you didn't keep silent. You didn't sit on the issue. You advanced it in collaboration with the police department, the city attorney, and the mayor of Aurora. I love the city of Aurora. I love the serve, and these are the kinds of things that I enjoy doing, protecting the citizens here in Aurora and across the state. Thank you, Mayor, for this honor.
Thank you very much.
I wrote some notes. I've never passed a bill before, so this is new to me. I am very, very thankful for Mayor Kaufman and Senator Rhonda Fields, as well as Aurora City Council, for allowing us to have this time to present this. Thank you for allowing me to have a few moments here to specifically address the drafting and the passing of Senate Bill 2375, which specifically deletes child witness and child victim names from criminal justice records records. To provide a bit of context, which I think the mayor had already shared a little bit about, I know it's not lost on the community and it's not lost on City Council that gun violence among our youth is a significant crisis that is affecting our country and most notably Colorado. As an educator and community member, I witnessed firsthand the gun violence at Hinckley High School on November 19th, 2021, which occurred shortly after the violence affecting Central High School students at Nome Park. While gun violence shook our community and created a sense of instability, the release of the arrest affidavit several weeks later to the media, which listed the full names and details of the witnesses and the victims of these horrific events, created an entirely new challenge. As reported from our school resource officers, students were apprehensive and still were apprehensive to report crimes being committed because of significant fear of retaliation if their names were released within police reports. In an effort to support our students, our community reached out to Mayor Kaufman, who then reached out to Senator Fields to begin to draft legislation to ensure that this would not happen again. Senate Bill 2375 was drafted. Senator Fields secured additional senators and representatives as prime sponsors of this bill. And while I'm not incredibly savvy around how legislation gets passed, what I have learned is that through the levels of the Senate and the House, Senate Bill 2375 passed unanimously and was signed by Governor Polis May 23rd, 2023, and was fully enacted immediately. I just found that part out today. Senator Fields, Mayor Kaufman, our sincerest thank you. We truly and wholeheartedly believe that this will save lives and create a safer community, not only in Aurora, but across the state of Colorado. You have enacted change that will have a lasting impact, and I personally am forever grateful.
National Gun Violence Awareness Month. Is there anyone who wants to come down that's here for that issue, that proclamation? Whereas every day 120 Americans are killed by gun violence, and countless others are wounded, and firearms are the leading cause of death for American children and teens, and whereas the city of Aurora is still affected by the mass shooting of July 20th, 2012, where 12 people were killed and 70 others injured very near City Hall, and whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with the public's right to live free of gun violence, and whereas June 29th, 2023 would have been the 26th birthday of Hadia Pendleton, a teenager tragically shot and killed just weeks after she marched in the presidential inaugural parade, and whose life and death inspired the National Gun Violence Awareness Movement. And whereas orange is the representative color due to hunters wearing it to protect themselves and others from shots, and because orange symbolizes the value of human life, and whereas June 4th, 2023 was designated as the 8th National Gun Violence Awareness Day in remembrance of Haida and all people who lost their lives to a gun, and whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children, teens, families, and communities safe. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Mike Kaufman, Mayor of the City of Aurora, do hereby declare June 2023 as National Gun Violence Awareness Month, a witness whereof I have herein to set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Aurora, Colorado to be fixed this 28th day of June 2023. Mike Kaufman, Mayor, Aurora, Colorado.
Thank you. There are so many people in this room who are working tirelessly behind the scenes to stop gun violence. So many of our community partners and people who are just there day in and day out trying to stop this epidemic, especially the epidemic that we are facing here in Aurora. Listening to Senator Fields, who has been personally impacted by gun violence, and listening to the assistant principal from Hinckley. As a fellow teacher at Overland High School, we also have lost students to gun violence, one in 2021 as well. And as a lifelong citizen of Aurora, this is important. And I know there's a lot of people here tonight that are here specifically to talk about this issue. And I am so thankful for every single one of you who is working behind the scenes to stop this epidemic. And our group, Moms Demand Action, we are just in awe of the work that some of you in here do. And so thank you, Mayor Mike Hoffman. Thank you especially to Curtis Gardner, who helped us with this proclamation, as well as helped us with all of the gun buybacks that he sponsored and worked with and did so much to help with that movement in Aurora and Denver. And so we just have a lot of people in this room that we admire and we thank, and hopefully we can all come together and make this place safer for our students and for our families.
Thank you. Do we have anybody here for Disability Pride Month? Disability Pride Month is an opportunity to honor the history, achievements, experiences, and struggles of the disability community and our valued community members with disability. And whereas disabilities are experienced in all aspects of identity, including race, ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, gender, and all backgrounds, and whereas the diverse term disability encompasses physical, intellectual, developmental, emotional, invisible, acquired, chronic, and device-assisted states, and whereas disability does not diminish one's right to independence or social engagement and should be a celebrated facet of one's personhood, and whereas despite the powerful social movements that led to the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act on July 26, 1990 by President George H.W. Bush, individuals with disabilities still experience barriers to full social participation, and whereas the creation of equitable and inclusive environments is a matter of social justice and must be the shared responsibility of each individual, regardless of ability, through valuing our experiences with disabled persons, removing the ongoing barriers presented to them. Now, therefore, I, Michael Kaufman, Mayor of the City of Aurora, proclaim the month of July 2023 as Disability Pride Month in the city of Aurora, Colorado, and invite all to celebrate the countless talents, experiences, and contributions of individuals and disabilities with disabilities, and commit to making Aurora a city inclusive to all. A witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Aurora, Colorado to be affixed this 28th day of June 2023. Mike Hoffman, Mayor, Aurora, Colorado.
Thank you, Mayor Kaufman. Thanks, Matt, for taking the picture. And thank you to the city council members for their support for this. My name is Will Flowers. I serve the city as the website and digital accessibility coordinator in the communications department. Been an Aurora resident for the past 7 years and made a career of service to individuals with disabilities and increasing access for individuals with disabilities in higher education and public sector. And so I can say, Aurora, you've put a lot of resources towards this. It's a wonderful community. I'm really grateful to be here and to accept this. We say in the disability rights communities, the ADA is the floor, not the ceiling, a lot of times. And so One of the things I can say about Aurora from my time here and my experiences in this community and in this city government is that, compliance is a start line, not the finish line. The finish line is inclusion, acceptance, and embracing disability identity. And Aurora is really putting a lot of resources in the right direction. This is a wonderful thing. Thank you.
Land acknowledgement. The City of Aurora acknowledges that we gather on the territories and ancestral homelands of the Cheyenne, Ute, Arapaho, and Lakota peoples, past and present. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. Indigenous peoples have remained committed to the stewardship of the land over many centuries. As these words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard, the ties that these nations have to their traditional homelands and to their vital place in the ecosystem are renewed and reaffirmed, and we are called to be better stewards of the land we inhabit as we continue to work to meet the needs of our entire nation. Public invited to be heard.
Yes, we have Joveda Scott, followed by Robbie DeYoung.
Hi. Greetings to the council. I have been a homeowner and resident in Hoffman Heights for nearly 13 years. I have been a victim of criminal terrorist attacks since 2018, and when my daughter moved out in 2020, the terrorism increased to the point that I had to call Aurora Police Department, APD, daily. I am asking the Aurora City Council to empower the APD with the tools needed to bring organized criminals and terrorists to justice and make Hoffman Heights a safe community for all to live in. A multi-unit apartment building is being constructed directly behind where I live, as well as other multi-unit buildings on Colfax Avenue and Peoria in my neighborhood. I would like to know what the City of Aurora and/or real estate investors or contractors' real estate development plans are for the Hoffman area, which includes my property or any other property on 14th Avenue between Peoria and Scranton. Are there signs of real estate monopolizing by real estate investors in Ward 1 area from 13th Avenue to 14th Avenue, which ends just past Troy Street, and from Peoria to Troy Street? Are these investors related to the company's buildings behind my home? Also, are there plans for rezoning in this area? The criminal activity and terrorism that I continue to experience may be related to these contracting companies' plans behind my home or nearby real estate investors with monopolizing property intent. This terrorism is probably a scam inspired by real estate investors with friends and motivate people like me that are easy targets to gain low-priced property and quick sales. I have had resistance from the APD, and they are unable to catch the terrorists targeting my home. APD needs help now before the population and crime explodes from numerous multi-unit buildings. I am requesting that high-powered ultrasonic, infrasonic sound generators and apps which produce high and low-pitched sounds and do bodily harm, like the Havana syndrome, which the terrorists have been using on me, to be outlawed in Aurora and the state. These areas surrounding Colfax need more lighting in front and behind of homes on 14th Avenue and throughout the neighborhood. We need new approaches to policing that work.
Okay, thank you very much.
Robbie DeYoung, followed by Missy Berglund.
Okay, I'm going to try and talk on 3 different subjects as quickly as I possibly can. Thank you for having me up here. I went to a meeting not too long ago with the City Council, and I went to the People's Building. I'm not happy, and considering what July's month is going to be about, I would like to know why in that area of town that a handicap spot is clear in the back of the parking lot. Not right next to the building, but back in the back of the parking lot. That needs to be resolved. That's not acceptable. Something also needs to be done about Hamden and Buckley. We've had some serious accidents in the last few days. A young man that was on a motorcycle that was going way too fast, is now gone. We had an accident earlier today. There was 5 accidents from Buckley down to Himalaya on Hamden. Something has to be done. Now, the last one, and the one I'm really, really upset about. I have a friend, he and his wife are good friends of mine, and you guys know them, but I'm not going to give their names. But he was in his government building just recently over off of Buckley, or off of Tower. And he was on the 3rd floor, and he heard a commotion outside his door of his office. So he and his associate went to the door, and there was their security guard and a woman wrestling on the ground with a gun, fighting over a gun. They immediately shut the door, called 911, and 911 told him, "That's not an emergency. I'm going to send you to the non-emergency number." That's not an emergency when an armed security guard is fighting with somebody that has a gun on the floor of the 3rd. It's a government building, basically. And they were told, "No, this isn't an emergency." And he said, "Well, what do you think is an emergency?" And she said, "Well, has anybody been shot?" Give me a break. That's not acceptable. That is not acceptable. I'm a gun owner, and I don't find that acceptable at all. The gun violence is out of control. What it's doing to our youth is out of control. Thank you.
Missy Berglund, followed by Eric Shanholtz.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for having us tonight. I just am a little amazed and shocked that the entire meeting so far has been about violence in our community. This is incredibly concerning to me as a mother of children, as a lifelong resident of this community. And I heard Senator Fields talk about the work that had been done, collaborative work that had been done, people listening to each other to protect children. And I think that's what we need to be doing in our city. And I would say that that is a little difficult to do. It is difficult for you to hear from us and for us to hear from you when people show up at at-large city council meetings and our at-large city council members are not present. When there is a meeting scheduled, when there is a meeting on the calendar, it is expected that our council members would show up. And if you're not going to show up, at least make your public aware that you are not going to show up to these meetings. We have no time or space to speak to you if we can't access you at the meetings that are published on the city's webpage. And this matters because we're hearing about how our kids are being impacted by what's happening in this city. And you all make the decisions on what is funded in this city. And I would ask everybody in the room behind me to take out your phones, go to Google, and look up the Child Opportunity Index website. This website shows city funding, state funding, national funding for children in our community. And I would like you to look up the city of Aurora. If you go to that website, Child Opportunity Index, just type it into Google, go to that website, look at the maps, and see where the city of Aurora chooses not to fund our children. And you will notice that the areas that this city chooses not to fund our children in are the areas where predominantly people of color live. It is disturbing, it is upsetting, because those areas also overlap with the areas in which the police department in the city of Aurora identifies as our high crime areas. So when our city is not investing funding in our children, and then is choosing to invest more money in over-policing those areas, up to the point at which children in our community are killed by our police department, we have an issue. And I need each one of you to make a commitment not only to connecting with your community, showing up to your meetings, but also making budget decisions that align with spending money on our children. Again, the website that you're looking for on Google is the Child Opportunity Index. There are maps on that website. You can type in the zip codes and you can see which zip codes are funded well in this community and which zip codes are not. And North Aurora and the areas in which our children have been killed by police are the lowest funded areas in our communities. Thank you.
Eric Shanholtz.
Hello, everybody. Long time no see. A year ago, I brought this up to this council, and today I see that we are recognizing disabilities. The auditorium behind me is meant for school children. The seats are too small for full-size adults. They are painful. I have to sit up and back. Anybody else can't sit up and back because there's only 2 or 3 chairs up there. I am disappointed at the hypocrisy shown by this council. Thank you.
That was the last individual.
Adoption of the agenda. No, motion is in order.
I made a motion.
It's been moved by Councilmember Sundberg, seconded by Councilmember Zvonek to adopt the agenda. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, call for the question on the adoption of the agenda.
Mayor Kaufman.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes, I keep getting disconnected from eScribe, but I'm a yes.
Okay. Councilmember Murillo. The motion passes to adopt the agenda.
A motion is in order for adoption of the consent calendar, item number 10A through 10A 225.
Mayor,
Councilmember Lawson.
I approve to move the consent calendar forward except for 10A14 and 10A19.
I'm sorry, except for what?
10A14 10A14 and 10A19.
Second.
Well, the motion now is the adoption of the consent calendar, item number 10A1 to 10A13, and item number 10A15 to 10A18, and item number 10A20 to 10A25. Is there further discussion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Bergen.
is 10C included in that? Oh, I thought 10C was, but I just wanted to second the motion.
Okay. Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the consent calendar. Item number 10A1 through 10A13, 10A15 through 10A18, 10A20 through 10A25.
Mayor.
Oh, I need a motion for the adoption of the consent calendar as amended. Councilmember Bergen.
Oh, yes, Mayor, I second it with Council Members Lawson made a motion to approve the entire consent calendar with 2 exceptions, and that's what I seconded.
Very well. It was moved by Councilmember Lawson and seconded by Councilmember Bergen. Is there, yes?
Mayor, we do have 2 individuals from the public who would like to speak on a few items on the consent calendar. If we could have them speak before council votes.
Very well.
Okay.
Now let's proceed with the speakers.
Okay. The first individual we have is Robbie DeYoung. She is speaking on items 10A7 through 25.
Okay. It's okay, I'm not going to do each one individually. The reason why I'm here on the Youth Violence Protection Program, I just want to make absolutely certain that these programs, and there are organizations that we're all familiar with, the Boys and Girls Club, Aurora Sister Cities, A1 Boxing, the list goes on. I want funding for this program. I definitely want funding for this program, but I want to make sure that each and every one of these departments, these organizations, are held accountable for any funding that they might get for this program, and that they show the results of what they are going to do to help the youth, because our youth is too important to just be throwing money out because somebody asked for it. I don't care if it is the 18th Judicial Assessment Center. Everyone needs to be held accountable for every penny that they get and every bit of support that they get from the mayor and the council. I want them to be accountable, to show their agendas and what they plan on doing to help the youth, and then later on, as time goes on, show what the results of those programs are. So that's what I'd like to pass along.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next individual is Missy Berglund for items 10A7 through 10A25.
Good evening. Again, I would support all of these organizations getting funding, and what I would say is that it is not nearly enough funding. The fact that we are spending more on intervention versus prevention, given that everything you've talked about today is the hopes of reducing violence in our community. This is not nearly enough for any of these organizations to be sustainably funded, to have long-term goals and outcomes. I hear her desire for out of her data, and I would say if you want these organizations to provide that kind of data, then you need to pay them to be able to provide that kind of data. And currently, your funding system does not fund staffing, it funds programming. And so if you're going to want those type of outcomes, then you need to increase the amounts you're funding these organizations by, and particularly, again, the organizations that are serving the areas that are currently inadequately funded in our communities. So I would ask that you vote in favor of all of these, and that at your next budget meeting, you ensure that you increase the funding for youth violence prevention, and that you increase the funding for other youth programming across the city. That said, thank you for opening up your rec centers during the summers. I would hope that you see that kids are showing up to those, and that you increase that accessibility for our kids, and figure out transportation for them to get there, because unfortunately in my neighborhood, kids can't get over to the Central Rec Center very easily. Kids can't get to Moorhead very easily, but you sure are out there patrolling our kids at our parks and our areas that are not accessible to those rec centers. So do better, spend more money on our kids. They need it.
That was the last individual.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 10A14?
Mayor, we have a motion from Councilmember Lawson and a second from Councilmember Bergen to adopt the consent calendar with items 10A14 and 10A19 removed.
I stand corrected. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, question before us is the adoption of the consent calendar as amended. Call for the question.
Mayor Kaufman,
Mayor votes yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
The motion passes to adopt the consent calendar with items 10A14 and 10A19 removed.
Will the clerk please read the title to item number 10A14?
Item 10A14 is Youth Violence Prevention Program Funding Recommendation for Empowering BIPOC Girls Through Entrepreneurship.
Councilmember Lawson? Oh, do you want, why don't we have a brief, you want to start with a brief presentation by staff? Very well.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Joseph D. Herrera, Manager of the Youth Violence Prevention Program. Just to review high level of the entrepreneurship for BIPOC women. This programming is designed surrounding mentorship and entrepreneurship education specifically for BIPOC youth and young women. That is something that we were, as the committee, selected to push this forward for the mentorship, specifically focusing on entrepreneurship for BIPOC women and young adults.
Questions to staff?
I guess, Mayor, I just have a question.
Please.
I couldn't look onto their website. Do they work with the 17th and 18th Judicial as well as referrals? How are the referrals done?
So we do have a representative from the agency here for specific questions if we would like them to answer those questions. I'm not sure. I don't want to speak to their work specifically with the 17th and 18th and misspeak about their involvement there.
Further questions to staff? Seeing none, I'm sorry.
Sorry, it sounds like we could get an answer to that question if we allow the representative to answer it. Could we hear from the representative of the organization?
Very well. A very brief answer, please. I'll come to the microphone.
Hello, everyone. Our program is recruiting girls.
Could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Maya Wheeler. I'm the Executive Director for the Weija Dada Center for the Empowering BIPOC Girls Through Entrepreneurship. We are recruiting our girls from the city of Aurora, and we're working with city organizations like the Aurora South SBDC, the Arapahoe Douglas Workforce Center on Havana Street, and on Havana Street, Bonfire Event Company, 80 Works, the Aurora SBDC, the Association of Black Psychologists, Afri Coast Patterns, and WorkSource Consulting. But all of our girls are coming from the city of Aurora.
Please proceed.
The reason I asked you that question, Maya, and that's great that you're recruiting from those organizations, but we have a lot of the young girls that right now are doing crime. And I wanted to know if before, maybe if they do get into the juvenile system, if maybe we can get them and grab them out before they commit further crimes. And I'm just wondering if through the mentorship program to show them something different. So that's why I know you're doing in Aurora, but that's specifically why I was asking more of the judicial system as well, so judges or something like can give some referrals, maybe some of these young women and young girls who maybe have made a mistake, but then if we can show them an opportunity or something like that, different in entrepreneurship or something like that, then maybe they won't do something again. And so that's why I was asking that specific question.
Thank you. So since we're in the Aurora Workforce Building off of Chambers and, near Chambers and Colfax, they have a probation department there. So I have reached out to them and I'm trying to build a relationship to do that, but that is a good suggestion and I will do that. We do have a mentoring program. We work with a professor from DU. She's over the trauma clinic there. So our girls have we started our program on June 10th. Our girls have already met with a licensed psychologist for 4 hours already, talking about social, emotional, and behavioral development to learn how to resolve conflict without it resulting in violence.
Further questions?
Mayor,
Councilmember Jurinsky.
how many girls do you have enrolled in your program right now?
We're trying to get 15. Currently, we have 10 right now.
Okay. And just for clarification, because when this came before us the first time, it sounded like you didn't have your own nonprofit and that you were operating under someone else's nonprofit, and I think that's what gives us pause.
Yes, so I have a fiscal agreement with Trailhead Institute. They've been in business since 1993. They assume control over our youth program, including responsibilities such as managing funding, processing revenue, and conducting program activities. They collaborate closely with us to develop goals, budgets, and secure financial resources for the program, and they actively monitor the stability and effectiveness of our organization. So all monies, if awarded from the City of Aurora, will go directly to Trailhead, and we will have to turn in expenses to get reimbursed from them to make sure we're doing everything in the plan that we said we would do with the City of Aurora.
Sure, so I guess I just don't understand why Trailhead didn't apply. Has city staff, have we vetted Trailhead? Have we vetted this organization?
Oh, the fiscal agent we have applied for our 501c3, but when you're a new nonprofit and you're waiting on your 501c3 and you're learning how to manage your funds and run projects and everything, it's good to have a fiscal agent because they have a history and they know the best practices and things like that to help us. And it means we're more accountable because that's what Trailhead Institute does. And they're a public health organization, so they know a lot about youth violence programs and how to guide us through this process. But it was us as an organization, the Weija Dada Center, that chose to apply for this grant and not Trailhead. But we're using their 501c3.
Mayor?
Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, just to get a little more clarification on a fiscal sponsor, because it seems to be the crux. I work with a lot of those agencies. It's basically nonprofits that are kind of starting but don't have all the bandwidth or the money or the resources to have accounting, HR, all those things. So Trailhead is basically a conduit. There's numerous companies that do that. I've worked with Trailhead in the past with good results from them in other areas where they've kind of offshoot that, and then those nonprofits went on to be their own 501c3s. Their foundation is another one, which is $1 billion foundation. So they also do fiscal sponsorships. None of these places are going to do something nefarious in the sense that they're trying to take money from us. It's just that it's to me, it's an extra guarantee that those things will be fulfilled, and to me, it's another benchmark for this foundation to be, this nonprofit to be able to be held more accountable. So it's like a second review.
Okay, very well. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Motion is in order.
Mayor?
Councilmember Coombs.
I move to approve the funding for empowering BIPOC girls through entrepreneurship.
It's been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Marcano.
Councilmember Marcano. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 10A14. Call for the question.
Oh,
I'm sorry?
sorry, I wasn't able to get on, not feeling well. So I just, clarification on the nonprofit status, she's under another one?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, is there, further discussion? Seeing none, call for the question on the adoption of item number 14, item number 10A14.
Mayor Kaufman,
Mayor votes yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
The motion passes with 10 yes votes and 1 no vote from Mayor Pro Tem Gardner for item 10A14.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 10A19?
Item 10A19 is Youth Violence Prevention Program Funding Recommendation for Struggle of Love Foundation.
Brief presentation by staff.
Thank you, Mayor. So Struggle of Love focuses primarily their programming on violence interruption. In addition to this, they really focus on reaching the hard-to-reach youth in our communities and their families. They provide them with food bank access. They provide them with re-entry services after they've been involved in the justice system, and they provide mentorship, counseling, therapy, those types of resources for our at-risk youth and their families that are involved in the justice system.
Questions to staff? Seeing none, the motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
I move to approve item 10A19, funding for the Struggle of Love Foundation.
It's moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Marcano.
Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 10A19. Further discussion?
Mayor?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Coombs.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to speak to something that recently came up in our luncheon with our judges, which was specifically that they have difficulty finding organizations to refer young people to under the age of 14 for a variety of supports, including vocational programming and vocational supports. This is a type of support that Struggle of Love is already providing in our community and already providing to kids and families in Aurora specifically. So they've been getting funded out of Denver, funded by many other entities. Most of their money is not going to come from this grant, no matter what. But in that process, they're serving Aurora families. Aurora families are going to the Park Hill Golf Course, are going to Montbello to get these services because, as we already have known and discussed many times, these issues don't stop at the city borders, right? Those are artificial boundaries that the kids aren't going to follow with respect to the types of behaviors and issues that we're trying to address. And so food assistance is being provided to Aurora families by this organization. Vocational support for kids of all ages, including the early young kids that we really want to keep from getting into the trouble in the first place, is being provided by this organization. And they are providing that without a single cent of funding from us right now. The fraction of their funding that would come from this grant would expand their capacity to have more of an impact on our Aurora families. And so I just really urge my colleagues to recognize that demonstrated work with support that's going to help make things better for our kids and families.
Further discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Medina.
Yep, I would like to kind of piggyback on Councilmember Coombs as well. I've worked with the Hodges in Montbello quite a bit since I also work in that sector as well, and in Aurora. So I'm very familiar with their work. We just got through an event, Heal the Hood in Montbello, which was very well received. All the agencies there that are helping with youth violence, so that was a very big thing that was put on over the weekend. I attended that function as well. And so I would like to see some of that bleed over to Aurora, because I think it's a very powerful thing when all those agencies get together collectively to share their resources with each other and get to know each other better, because I believe it takes us all as community members, and I think they do a great job. They have a good story, and they have proven track records. So I certainly would have all our colleagues vote yes on this. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of 10A19. Call for the question.
Mayor Kaufman,
Mayor votes yes.
Councilmember Mario,
Yes.
the motion does not pass with 5 yes votes, 6 no votes from Councilmember Zavonic, Councilmember Lawson, Councilmember Bergen, Mayor Pro Tem Gardner, Councilmember Drinsky, and Councilmember Sundberg.
Let's see. The question before us now is the adoption of the consent calendar for resolutions and ordinances. Item number 11A through 11A2. Motion is in order. I'm sorry, 11B5. Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to approve 11A1 through 11B5. Oh, actually, can we do 11A2 through 11B5? I would just like to pull off 11A1 for
You
discussion.
want to take 11B2 out?
11A1.
11A1 out?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that the only one? Okay. Further discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. It's been moved by Councilmember Coombs to approve the consent calendar, item number 11A1. I'm sorry, 11A2 to 11B5. Second, is there?
Mayor, I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by Councilmember Lawson. Further discussion? Seeing none, call for the question on the adoption of the consent calendar as amended.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson. Thank you. The motion passes to adopt the consent calendar for resolutions and ordinances with item 11A1 removed.
Would the clerk now please read the title to item number 11A1?
Item 11A1 is Resolution 2023-69, expressing the Aurora City Council's declaration of normal water availability conditions effective June 29th, 2023.
A brief presentation by staff.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. As everyone I'm sure recalls, we came a few months ago asking council to enter into a stage 1 drought declaration, primarily due to low reservoir content. Our reservoir levels had reached 54% of full, which was a significant concern that had taken a while to get there. And some of the snowpack in the areas primarily focused on Aurora's areas of yield were also not doing well. So council approved entering into stage 1 drought declarations. Subsequent to that time, we brought into our system significant volumes of water from a lease with Pueblo Water, specifically 9,000 acre feet that we had discussed with council back in November of 2022. We also had relatively unprecedented rainfall low in our system that helped recover reservoirs down low. Some of the reservoirs up high are still struggling, but our reservoir content has recovered to, as of today, 85% of full. We do not forecast filling Homestake Reservoir specifically, but some of the other reservoir levels are continuing to increase. We do anticipate filling Spinney Mountain Reservoir. We did have to spend roughly $7.5 million for the lease of that 9,000 acre feet of water from Pueblo Water. That was significant in helping recover our system. So at this time, we are comfortable recommending to council that we restore normal watering conditions in Aurora, which would be 3 days a week. No watering, no outdoor watering between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. And with that, we feel we're in good shape for the remainder of this year and prepared well headed into next year. I will point out we did negotiate or start negotiations on some other lease agreements to add additional water to our system, but we also at this time do not feel that we need to pursue those currently, so that's good. That will save us some money that will benefit the ratepayers as well. So with that, recommending that we restore normal watering conditions to our system.
Questions of staff?
Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Mayor.
No, did you have anything else, Mr. Brown? Very well. Councilmember Coombs.
Okay, thank you. I'm wondering, do we have information about the reduction in water use throughout May and June here in the city, resulting from the just unprecedented, I think, multiple hundreds of year storms that we received over the course of May and June?
Yeah, great question, Councilman Coombs. We saw about 80% less outdoor water use through that time period. A majority of our residential, single-family residential customers did not appear to turn their irrigation systems on. We had some who chose to turn them on. Most of the larger irrigation systems did irrigate during that time period, but had slightly less water use. So overall, about 80% less water use through the May and June time period, which also helped significantly with the recovery of our system. Down low, primarily, not as much up high where the water had not yet, well, it takes us a while to move the water, so we evacuate the space up high, move it down low, and then had significant benefits. Aurora's 100% full right now, a little over 100. Quincy's a little over 100% full, and Spinney, which is our largest storage bucket, is about 93% full right now, so that's really good news. And that was associated, to your point, with lower demands, high rainfalls, and the lease from Pueblo of 9,000 acre feet.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
follow up. So what would be the impact if folks continued to, if let's say we continue to have cooler weather, if folks continued to not irrigate as much, even if it's not that 80% reduction, like from a reservoir filling standpoint, how can people continue to conserve by reducing that outdoor irrigation?
Great question again. We encourage people to, and we have rebate programs that would help customers shift to water smart irrigation systems. The newer systems are tied into local weather stations, and so they will lower water demand or water use during moisture periods, rainfall events. We would encourage customers to pay attention to the rain. Don't irrigate if you need to. We do have a program also called Know Your Flow that's managed through our water conservation team. Customers can reach out and they receive a weekly email saying, hey, based on weather forecasts, soil moisture content, etc., here's how many times we recommend watering this next week for different types of irrigation. And here's how long we recommend irrigating. So that's a helpful tool as well. So a lot of very good information on our water conservation website, and then staff is always happy to visit with customers.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor.
I'm sorry. Who?
Zvonik over here in Bergen.
Okay, Councilmember Zvonik.
Thank you, sir. So I guess I probably know the answer to this based on the previous answer to Councilmember Coombs' question, but were there any residents or businesses that were impacted, meaning they were hit with a fee based on the stage 1 drought restrictions?
Yes, there were customers who were impacted. A minority of our single-family residential customers who chose to turn their irrigation systems on did see some surcharges. Most of them were relatively small. So again, the surcharge was $1.19, I think. $1.95 per 1,000 gallons. And most of the increased usage for the minority of single-family residential customers who turned their systems on was between 0 up to roughly 5,000 gallons of use. So some of that gets a little larger. There were a few who used a little bit more. Most of the multifamily customers also did not turn their systems on, but some did. And then some commercial, again, I think it was about half of our commercial customers turned on their systems. The other half did not. And we had a significant number of our outdoor irrigation accounts that chose to turn their systems on. We do have some room for communication there. Most of those are irrigating turf, and turf did not need to be irrigated for the entirety of that 2 months. And so we're going to need to follow up with them and remind them, don't turn your systems on if they don't need to be turned on.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor?
Councilmember Bergen.
Thank you. I just want to say that I'm actually happy. I'm going to show you my bill. I'm normally one of those high water users that have a lot of yard and stuff, but my bill was $59.10. And if you look at last June, I was at 22 gallons versus 4 gallons of water. And I still took care of my plants. I still hand watered my plants.
Further discussion?
Mayor Jurenski.
Councilmember Jurenski.
Yeah, I definitely don't find anything funny about this, and I think this rain season is definitely due to God, not Marshall Brown. They are two different things. I want to bring up that this newsletter that goes out with our water bill, and I'm sure that our water department will blame this on comms. You know how it goes, everybody passes the buck. But you open this up, this goes to every home in Aurora with their water bill. You open this up and we have a nice article about how to protect you and your loved ones during the flooding. That's in here. You turn the page, upcoming bills include drought surcharges. So the messaging going out to this city is horrible. This is a humongous fumble to this city. I showed up today at 11 o'clock to do an interview, and even without the stage 1 drought restrictions, it still is, you shouldn't water your yard between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Well, that great, humongous lawn out there in the front of the building, sprinklers were on everywhere. And most of them don't even work correctly. So this is where the rules for thee but not for me type government doesn't work for me. And to follow up with what Councilmember Zabonik asked, and I read earlier that it was to the tune of $600,000 that was assessed to the residents of Aurora in surcharge fees. I want them all returned. I want them all refunded. And I'm happy to bring forward a resolution and put my colleagues on the spot for that. I want this money refunded. I don't find anything funny about this. And when this monsoon season started, when the flooding started in this city, this governing body, at any point up until now, could have got together and ended this at any point. But we waited this long? We waited till our reservoirs are at 90% to make this happen while our residents are charged surcharge fees? I'm disappointed in us.
Mayor.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Coombs.
As impressive as the grandstanding is, we have to make data-driven decisions. We did not have our reservoirs recovering, and one big rainstorm and one big flood in no reason gave us reason to believe that was going to happen. So yeah, actually, I think it was the responsible and right decision to make at that time. And for the people who chose to turn on their irrigation systems while people are flooding, knowing that surcharges were coming forward, that was a choice that they made. It was not something that was imposed on them. So as much as it might get you kudos to to say refund this money to the commercial customers, the multifamily customers, and the single-family residential customers who chose to turn on their systems while we're in the middle of unprecedented rain. Like, no, we have to have incentives. We have to have mechanisms in place that encourage people to conserve, because you've been living here just as long as I have. We've been in a drought for our entire lives. One big rain season doesn't change the fact that we've had our entire lifetimes of drought. And we should be being responsible about water, even if we have one big rain season.
Mayor.
We should continue to do so.
Further discussion, Councilmember Jernsky.
Yeah, I don't think $600,000 on our residents is grandstanding. I think it's all of our job to be good stewards for our residents, and I don't see any grandstanding about $600,000 from our residents. And also, my biggest issue with this, it's not about being good stewards of water. This body voted for so many government restrictions, so much government control, limiting the size of yards, doing away with water features, raising water rates, a moratorium on golf courses. No moment of pause to go into the rain season, just more government control, big brother government. We couldn't take a moment of pause to even see if that's going to be natural water conservation, because to me, raising the water rates alone, when people see their bills go up, if they would have gone up had we not had this rain season, that's a natural conservation measure.
Okay, well.
So why is it government control after government control? Why couldn't we had a moment of pause and if need be, then talked about a drought and adding an additional fee onto our residents?
Well, I recognize myself as the one who introduced the water conservation ordinance to this city council, and that is that the fundamental issue in water conservation on new developments is to reduce outdoor irrigation. Outdoor irrigation is about 50% of our use. We're not able to reclaim that water that goes down the drain. We can reclaim it. We can clean it up. We can put it back into, say, the river, where we and be able to use it to extinction. And so there's the issue, the fundamental issue, and this is a long-term problem. And if you look at the Colorado River Basin, which we're 25% dependent on, as well as the Arkansas River Basin and the other areas that we use, the fact is that climate change is a reality. And although we just had an aberration to it in terms of 2 great months where we had a lot of rain, that didn't help us in the mountains in terms of where our snowpack is. That helped us down here, and that made a difference. People not utilizing their systems, and people and then the reservoirs coming up to 100% and one to, I think it was 93%. So this is a long-term reality, and Aurora is taking a leadership position in the state of Colorado and in, I believe, the Colorado River Basin in terms of other states as well. So it's not an easy decision, but if you want to talk about having courage, it's going forward, making the right decision, the tough decision. Further discussion.
Mayor. Gardner.
Councilmember Gardner.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to echo what my colleague Councilmember Drinsky said. We tried to reconsider the drought declaration several months ago, in fact, and we're the only two that voted to support that. And I'm disappointed that our residents are now burdened with paying $600,000 extra dollars when they didn't have to. I think it's really easy to say, follow the data, but it's been pretty clear for quite some time that this should have been removed. And I think my biggest frustration, and I've said this several times, is first it was, well, if you don't pass this water conservation ordinance, we're going to have to increase rates. We passed the water conservation ordinance, and then sure enough, A couple weeks later, there was a proposal to increase water rates. And then we were told, well, if you don't increase water rates, we're going to be in a drought declaration. So I didn't support increased water rates, but a majority of council did. We increased water rates, and then sure enough, a couple weeks later, there was a drought declaration. And so I think what's most frustrating to me, and why the residents are so frustrated, is because we keep saying, we keep hearing from staff that, you know, if we have to do this or else this will come, we do it, and then the next thing comes anyways. And, you know, it's why our residents don't trust us. And, you know, if Councilmember Drinsky brings forward an ordinance to refund $600,000 to our residents, I will gladly support that.
Tim, that is not an honest depiction of the debate that occurred. No one at any time made the statement that if the water conservation measures pass, that we will not be raising rates at all. The issue is we'd have to raise them a great deal more if it didn't pass going forward with new development. So that simply is not an honest depiction. Further discussion.
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. I am almost speechless by what is happening tonight. So let's kind of get back to reality. So Marshall, with the tremendous amount of rain that we've had over the last couple of months, do you have a running total for how much water we've actually been able to catch in our system?
Yes, we can. I don't have the number off the top of my head. We can absolutely come up with that number. Since we monitor all reservoir levels and all runoff, we track all of that very closely.
Great.
So I can get that information.
Okay, great. And if we could also maybe put that out in terms of like total inches, because could you remind me what the average annual rainfall is for Aurora?
Yeah, average annual rainfall is right around 14 inches a year.
Okay.
And we've, I think, achieved that already. So
yeah, I thought so too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Further discussion. I see none. Councilmember Bergen.
Yeah, just for Marshall, in terms of our aquifer, since we had so much rain, does this also help our aquifers?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilwoman Bergen. A little bit. The surface water ability to recharge the groundwater is limited by a lot of things. So most of the high water benefit you get from rainstorms doesn't get to the aquifer. The surface water recharge of the aquifer is a fairly low percentage anyway. And once the soil becomes saturated, the rest of the rain just runs off. So it's a very slow process that doesn't change very much based on short-term storms. Climatological changes overall can affect it a little bit, but not very much.
But in this case, since it was more prolonged, maybe it would have helped a little bit more than an occasional rain, hopefully, a little bit.
There will be some benefit. Again, soil moisture definitely went up associated with the events, and there's additional percolation. It's just limited by what's called transmissivities of the soils, and so some benefit, but it would be relatively small.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of
11A. Mayor, I move to approve 11A1.
I think it's already been, we've already moved and seconded, did we not? We had not. It's moved by Councilmember Sundberg, seconded by?
Zvonek.
Seconded by Councilmember Zvonek to approve item number 11A1. I'm sorry. Is it 11A1. Further discussion? Seeing none, call for the question on the adoption of item number 11A1.
The motion passes to adopt item 11A1.
And I'm sorry, and the vote?
Unanimous.
Unanimous? Okay. Would the clerk now please read the title to item number 12A, item number 12A.
Item 12A is a public hearing and consideration of ordinance 2023-24, rezoning a parcel of land measuring 910 acres, more or less, located between Parker Road and E470, City of Aurora, County of Arapahoe, State of Colorado, to adjust the boundaries of low-density residential zone district R1 and medium-density residential zone district R2, and amending the zoning map accordingly.
Public hearing is now open. Presentation by staff.
Thank you, council members. My name is Eric Gates. I'm a planner with Planning and Development Services. It doesn't look like the presentation that I had prepared made it up here, but the applicant did provide some slides that show effectively the same thing I was going to show you. So I do appreciate the applicant for providing that. So before you is a zoning map amendment to adjust the zone district boundaries between the R1 low-density single-family residential zone districts and the R2 medium-density residential zone district. And this is on a piece of land located between Parker Road, Liberty Middle School, I don't know if I can point on it, Liberty Middle School to the east, Centennial to the north, and the Douglas County line to the south. So the entire site is located within the established neighborhood place type of the Aurora Places Comprehensive Plan. This place type primarily has its uses listed as residential uses, which is supported and allowed by both the R1 and R2 zone districts. And then here would be a map of the current zoning. So in the darker yellow, that would be the R2 medium density zone district. Everything else is the R1 zone district. As you can see, the R2 zone district is, which allows denser development, is generally located around E470, whereas the R1 zone district is located more adjacent generally to the county neighborhoods and Centennial neighborhoods. So should the zoning change be approved, this is more what it would look like with those darker areas cut out. Those would be now R1 zoned. This rezone is being proposed in anticipation of site plans that are currently under review or soon to be under review for single-family detached homes. The updated boundaries are drawn in such a way to avoid splitting any of those anticipated lots between two different zone districts, which the existing boundaries would do. The material effect of this change would be the transfer of roughly 100 acres from the R2 zone district to the R1 zone district. And the item was heard and unanimously recommended approval by the Planning Commission at their May 24th hearing. Staff also recommends approval based on the review criteria of the UDO. And that's all I have for my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. The applicant team is also here if you have questions specifically for them.
Presentation by the applicant. There's no presentation by the applicant, is that my understanding?
They provided the slides for reference.
Questions only, if there's questions for them.
Very well, presentation. I'm sorry, public invited to be heard. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this issue?
No.
Questions of staff or the applicant?
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yeah, so this, I suppose, would be more of the applicant than staff. I guess, given our significant housing needs, like, why such a significant downzoning? Is it not possible to build the product that you're talking about building with the existing zoning, and would you have more flexibility to build some denser product if you didn't downzone this area?
All right. Mr. Mayor and Council, I appreciate you having me here tonight. My name is Jeff Mark. I'm with Terracina Design. We are the land planners on this. The number of units does not change per the zoning. So we have a master plan that is approved on this. It allows 1,786 units. no matter what the zoning is, that doesn't change the number of units that are allowed. So going to the question, by us doing this, this doesn't reduce the number of homes that we're allowed to do. Really, the only reason we did make this change is where that blue line that's shown where the current zoning was where the main collector road that used to go through the property was. And so when we move this collector road with the new master plan, again, we can't have lots in two different zone districts. We worked with staff. We really decided that by moving this line here, it's just going to have the least potential for issues going into the future with dividing a lot within two different zone districts.
Further questions of the applicant or staff?
Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Bergen.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make note that where it has changed, so as was mentioned, the units don't change, there's still be the same number of units. But also there's the open space and then the golf course alongside that, whatever that is, the north side of E470 or south side of E470. So if you look at the map, you'll see that it's really the R2 is closer to the E470. And it does, it really does make sense for accommodating the slopes that are also in this topography as well.
Further questions of staff or the applicant? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Jersky.
motion to approve item 12A.
It's been moved by Councilmember Jersky, seconded by
Sundberg.
seconded by Councilmember Sundberg.
My area, Bergen.
Okay. Councilmember Bergen, seconded by Councilmember Bergen. Throw her a bone there since she's not feeling well. Okay, moved by Councilmember Jersky, seconded by Councilmember Bergen to approve item number 12A. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, call for the question on item number 12A.
The motion passes to adopt ordinance 2023-24.
Thank you.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 12B.
Item 12B is a public hearing in consideration of ordinance 2023-25, rezoning a parcel of land measuring 2.72 acres more or less, located at the northeast corner of Sable Boulevard and East 21st Avenue, City of Aurora, County of Adams, State of Colorado, from Rural Residential Zone District to Medium Density Residential Zone District, and amending the zoning map accordingly.
Public hearing is now open. Presentation by staff.
I don't know if my presentation came up. Perfect. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Ariana Muka, and I'll be presenting for staff. Tonight before you is a zoning map amendment for a zone going from RR, rural residential, to R2, medium density residential. Here's just a quick aerial map showing you that the site is bounded by single-family detached to the north and east, Big R stables to the south, and then condo apartments to the east, or to the west. Here is the site itself right now. Again, it is that RR, rural residential. You can see the R2, which is, again, just to the west of this site, and that will be what's taking the place right here in this site. In our comprehensive plan, this is already designated as established neighborhood, and there will be no change. R2 fits in the established neighborhood type. Finally, this is the site plan. It's going to have several townhomes and green courts right along this area. And with that, does the City Council want to approve the zoning map amendment from the RR district to the R2 district? And we do have an applicant presentation to follow. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Presentation by the applicant.
Yes, thank you. My name is Colin Kimberlin Architecture. Here is Paula Workman Associates, representing the owners and also a marketing and real estate expert in the area for 40 plus years. The intent of this applicant presentation really is to add a little bit of color and insight into our planning specific to the site and give everyone a better sense of the quality of the community that we hope to create here with approval of the rezoning and the site plan. But before moving off this screen, I wanted just to draw your attention to the proximity of the site, which is in the lower photograph, dead center, right at the bottom, to the Fitzsimmons Anschutz campus. Uninterrupted views of the Front Range, less than a 10-minute drive or a bus ride to I-70 to the north, and Aurora Town Center to the south, and in good proximity to the A line and R line. We're very excited about this site because it serves and is served by this emerging area, and east of is investment east of 225. Next slide. So as Ariana mentioned, the site is actually a remnant of the agricultural land that predominated east of I-225 decades ago, but is really now an outlier. The site is also an infill site bounded on two sides by public streets, Sable Boulevard on the west and East 21st Avenue on the south, and on the other two sides by existing single-family neighborhoods, specifically the Altura Sable neighborhood. Adjacent to the site, up to the site on the south, is a ranch, recreational horse riding, and other activities. There are single-family homes behind the site, but multifamily directly across Sable, both condo and apartment. And further south, there's fairly large subdivisions of manufactured housing. So there's many different types of housing in this area, and what we're proposing, townhomes, actually fits in very nicely to kind of complete a mix that is not here currently. But it's sort of an intermediate transitional density between all the areas surrounding the site. The site slopes, next slide please. The site slopes 20 feet from east to west, high side on the east, with a single-family homestead residing at the high point at the southeast corner. This is partly why the site enjoys some very significant views over Sable to the Front Range, but obviously the topography is something that we also want to address in the site plan, but also capitalize in a very site-specific design. So our approach, next slide, is to consider the site to be three stepped terraces, flattening out the hillside to the very top down about 5 feet from the neighbors behind on the east, and then a second and third terrace stepping down to Sable. In this way, the development nestles into the hillside while retaining a sense of the original topography, creates a softer transition with the adjacent single-family homes. It also allows some relatively flat areas for improved drainage and building pads. Each of these terraces would be anchored by a major green court or another significant linear open space amenity, and these are oriented north and south, specifically to maximize sun exposure. Another consideration here you can see on the diagram was a way to divide this fairly large block into smaller, more walkable blocks or neighborhoods. The site's about 350 feet by 350 feet. So what we did is we extended a private drive off of the exit or the entrance to the multifamily across Sable Boulevard into the site, west to east, bisecting it, and then turning south with a potential connection to the horse ranch. Should that be developed in the future, we would emphasize connectivity to that development. This allows us to divide the super block into 6 smaller blocks, improving the walkability score and just the feeling of a smaller community. Next slide. And the sequence of slides just show how we're looking to remove some of the soil, create the terraces. Next, the terraces build upon themselves, foundations for the townhomes, and then the resulting of all these initial planning moves in the site plan shows how all this works together. You can see that the 45 townhomes are arranged in 8 smaller buildings, 2 fronting Sable Boulevard, flanking the entry drive off Sable. 4 of them define 2 major green court spaces in the middle of the site, with the eastmost units of the green court lifted almost a floor higher so that they have and can take advantage of some of the views as well as enjoying green court frontage. And then the units on the furthest east facing the adjacent neighbor backyards, again lowered about 5 feet from the adjacent neighbors, face a non-standard linear green court and landscape buffer on the east. The private road design in coordination, collaboration with city staff is designed as a public street, like a public street, parallel visitor parking, detached sidewalks, street trees and tree lawns. And then springing from this private drive, you can see are a series of alleyways that access private enclosed garages. So everyone has an enclosed two-car garage, and to the greatest extent possible, we're trying to hide and mask the appearance of garages. The landscaped areas are highly planted and amenitized, including small usable turf areas, large areas of xeric and native adapted planting, shade trees, and also a number of paved areas, as you can see, for various types of gathering, from informal fire pit, picnic seating. We're still developing that, but we feel we have a very intense but interesting landscape plan that works in concert with the architecture. Next slide. Each unit also has a front porch, and many units have decks. Some of our inspiration for the building architecture came from the Italian hill town. While we couldn't reproduce the variety that's built up over the centuries, of course, we could combine the 4 townhome types that we're calling Vistas 1, 2, 3, and 4 in interesting ways to create street facades and also create interesting articulated roof lines while retaining the individuality of each home. And then as these different townhomes are reassembled in combinations for the 8 buildings stepping up the hillside, that further generates interest in the street face and the roof line using really the same 4 types. Next, please. Finally, all this comes together. An aerial view over Sable looking back at the development shows some of the variety as possible when combining the 4 townhome types, differing material palettes, articulated roof lines, and then the stepping up in the terraces from the east to the west. Materials include several types of brick, architectural windows, siding, and of course a large variety of landscape and plantings. Next. The 4 townhome types are designed to be efficient in construction while offering stylistic and floor plan changes intended to appeal to different demographics, and in particular what we would call kind of a middle demographic. There's been a lot of discussion about missing middle housing. We're looking to kind of bracket and center somewhere along that concept. Most of the units are 3-story with 1 2-story I call it maybe an entry-level option. We've worked in concert with Paula Workman to really fine-tune this to take advantage of where we see this area going and to appeal to the widest demographic that we feel is reasonable here. Units range from 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 3-bedroom, 3.5 with a home office, 1,100 square feet to just over 1,600 square feet. And the series of photos below accompanying each of these styles, before I get there, we're also looking to have a series of styles that range from contemporary to traditional to transitional, but that all work together so they don't appear as a cacophony of different ideas. They still work in harmony to create a sense of a single community. The photographs below here show ways that homeowners can further customize and add individuality to the units. Choices of planters, lighting, front door style and color, railings, and even some of the plantings and decking materials are ways that people can economically customize these 4 unit types and add further individuality and variety. And then finally, just a few views of the community that we hope to create from Sable. Next slide, sorry. A view from Sable looking at what would be building number 2, combining all 4 of the different vistas with changes in color palette, landscaping, detention accommodated in the very front of the site, and just going a long way to try to create an attractive community that's attainable for the demographic that we think is going to be here, but also allows for individuality and economy of scale. Next slide just shows another view from Sable, opposite. And then finally, a view of one of the green court spaces showing the intensity of the landscaping, the effort that we've put into creating this central piece. With that, that concludes this presentation. Available for questions. The owner or owners may be attending via phone, but I can answer any questions. Paula can answer any questions related to market and some of the other aspects of the development we hope to create here. Thank you.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this issue?
No.
Very well. Questions of staff or the applicant?
Mayor?
Councilmember Lawson?
I just had a question. So these are beautiful. I'm looking at Sable. Sable's pretty busy. So what has, I mean, I can't tell from the picture, but I know the traffic study's probably been done, but I kind of want to look at the safety piece because they kind of sit off on Sable. So Just kind of wondering what has been done on that effort
If we could go
in
back a
terms of
few slides.
crosswalking and all of that.
Actually, sorry to interrupt, but this is probably a good one.
Okay.
So the units do not directly front Sable. We have setbacks, and the setbacks are doing several things. So first of all, there is acquisition to widen both Sable and 21st to create a proper street section, not a rural street section. So there's an actual taking of about 5.5 feet of land. That has some positive effects on traffic calming, creating a detached sidewalk with street trees. You can see in the front of the image is another 13 feet further back, so we're at 18 foot. And then there's a 15-foot underground detention area with a special variance from, because of the topography and the challenges of an infill site, to get detention buried underground in a landscaped area. Then you have a site wall, landscaping and fencing, that's about a 5-foot elevation. And then you have a 15 to 20-foot front yard before you even get to the front door. So you have a change in elevation of 5 to 6 feet, and you have a setback of probably, I lost count of my math, but it's easily 40 to 50 feet back from Sable.
What is the projected price range?
We're probably looking, good evening, everybody. We're probably looking at 400s to 600s, and we're staying within the median price range of what is available in Aurora right now.
Very well. Questions of staff or the applicant? I commend you on this project. This is I admit it's a challenging area. Because it's sort of transitional from rural to suburban. So I think you've done well with the space that you've been afforded. Further questions of staff or the applicant? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Get a chance to. So I guess you mentioned the proximity to all the light rails and buses and everything like that. Did you make any efforts to take advantage of parking credit for transit-oriented development?
That's a good question. I think the zoning minimum for this is 2 spaces per unit. Since we are accommodating them in private garages and the width and depth happens to work perfectly fine, if someone wants to park one vehicle and store it in the rest, they certainly can, but we're meeting the zoning minimums right now. We also think that's the most marketable and flexible, particularly in an area where people have recreational equipment, especially. So really not affecting the garage size. We have I'd say the minimal amount of visitor parking on site, plenty of areas to drop off for car share, ride share, DoorDash, cycling, things of that nature. We do have quite a few bike racks that are scattered throughout, in addition to people being stored in the garage. So we feel that it does encourage other modes of transportation. There's always the challenge of that last mile when you're carrying groceries. Struggled with parking reductions with commercial, private, and public clients for 30 years, and it's always that last mile question. And we want to make sure that people feel they can live here, age here, move up here, and not have that be kind of a ball and chain around their ankle, particularly if we can do it in a way that has the lowest visual and environmental impact.
Further questions of staff or the applicant?
Mayor.
I'm sorry, Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. So kind of following up on that question, would y'all happen to be able to estimate how much the current parking minimums are actually adding to the cost of the overall project, or maybe to each unit?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
How much the parking minimums are actually adding to the cost of each unit?
Actually, very little, I would say negligible. You're building a 400 square foot unfinished, really unheated garage that's already in a building form that is inherently economical, townhome. It has a roof and 2 sides, except for the end cap units. So it has that economy built in. So a garage door, it's negligible, I'd say, to the cost.
All right, great, thank you.
Further questions of the applicant or staff? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor, we have to close the public hearing.
Oh, public hearing is now closed. Motion is in order.
Mayor, I move to approve 12B.
It's approved by Councilmember Sundberg, seconded by
Marcano.
I'm sorry, second by Councilmember Marcano, to approve item number 12B. I'm sorry, yeah, it's correct, item number 12B. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'm sorry.
Bergen.
Councilmember Bergen.
No, I just want to compliment the developer on this, doing the townhomes and not apartment buildings next to single-family homes. I think that was well thought out.
Very well. Further discussion? Seeing none, call for the question on item number 12B.
Councilmember Bergen?
I have eScribe open, it won't let me submit, so I'm a yes.
Okay. The motion passes to adopt ordinance 2023-25.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 12C.
Item 12C is public hearing and consideration of ordinance 2023-26, rezoning a parcel of land measuring 2.537 acres, more or less, at 3001 North Airport Boulevard from mixed-use corridor district to business tech district and amending the zoning map accordingly.
Public hearing is now open. Brief presentation by staff.
Good evening again, council members. My name's Ariana Muka. I am a city planner with the Development Services team here at the city. So this application for your review is a zoning map amendment, not a site plan. Right here is our aerial. So it's a zoom in of the site. It is going from MUC mixed-use corridor to I-1, which is business and tech district. The site is surrounded by a commercial parking lot, distribution, and a quick-serve restaurant to the north. Here is the zoning map. So the current zoning is to the left, the proposed is to the right. So a majority of this site is already zoned I-1. This application is proposing to complete this zoning map amendment to make everything an I-1 business tech district. Again, the comprehensive plan is industrial hub. There will be no change, and that works perfectly with the I-1 zone district. Quickly, the applicant is proposing to do a gas station, a convenience store, and that fuel station will be for both trucks and sedans. And with that, does the City Council wish to approve the zoning map amendment from MUC district to I-1 district? We have our applicant here with us for questions. And with that, I'm happy to take them as well.
Presentation by the applicant.
There is no presentation from the applicant tonight. They're here
Very
for
well.
questions.
Does anybody wish to be heard
No.
on this issue? Seeing none, questions of staff or the applicant. Let me, so is this the equivalent of a truck stop? I'm sorry, what is this?
So what's proposed is a fuel station and a convenience store.
So there's no overnight parking for, okay, semis and their trailers? Oh, very well.
There will be no overnight parking with trailers or trucks.
Okay. Well, we need it. It's too bad. Questions of staff?
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
So I know that obviously this meets the criteria with respect to not having multiple gas stations on one intersection, but is there proximity of other gas stations to this already?
Jeff, do you want to talk about why you guys picked this site, or do you want me to take it?
We can take it. Murphy Fuel is the applicant. They're behind the project. They do a pretty extensive market analysis when they come in to understand traffic, to understand competition surrounding where they sit. Oddly enough, on this or directly adjacent to this property to the north, in the old McDonald's parking lot, there used to be a fuel facility there. It's no longer there. So with that, Murphy has seen the opportunity to provide a nice development that can serve the public for the gas station. There aren't many very close now. I think it does help to mention that Gateway Park is very supportive of the project. I feel like a fueling facility is very appropriate for this location, for the people in the development that is happening in Gateway Park as well.
Further questions of staff of the applicant?
So Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
Just looking at the map, it looks like there multiple Flying J's, a Phillips 66, kind of pretty close. Not, again, at the immediate intersection, so not violating actual code, but there are 2 Flying J's and a Phillips 66 nearby. And so just in general, looking at placing more fueling stations in the city. We've seen this with Come and Go. I do have a concern about maybe this site will really thrive, but a nearby gas station goes out of business and then becomes incredibly difficult to redevelop. So that just really is a concern that I have that we can obviously discuss at the site plan discussion, because this doesn't violate any of our rules with respect to the zoning map.
Further questions of staff or the applicant? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed, and a motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Drinsky.
motion to approve item 12C.
It's been moved by Councilmember Drinsky, seconded by? Sundberg. Seconded by Councilmember Sundberg to approve item number 12C. Discussion? Seeing none, question before us is the adoption of item number 12C. Call for the question.
Councilmember Sundberg? Yes. The motion passes to adopt ordinance 2023-26.
Yes. City Manager, City Attorney, please.
Thank you. I wanted to recognize and do a congratulations tonight. This will be Dan Money's final night, our planning attorney's final night. Dan has become the city attorney for Windsor, Colorado.
Congratulations. Disappointed you're leaving, but I fully understand your reasons, and I hope you come back. I hope you have a terrible time. I hope it's just a horrible experience and you come back here. No, I wish you all the best. Wish you all the best. Thank you very much, City Attorney. Thank you, Dan.
And I just want to say thank you for the years I've worked with you all. It's been an honor and a pleasure. It's great to work in this type of realm of public service, and I really appreciate and respect all that you do and all that staff does and the boards do. So it's been great, but thank you.
You've done a great job for the city of Aurora. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 14A?
Item 14A is finalizing ordinance 2023-21, submitting to a vote of the registered electors of the city of Aurora, Colorado at the regular municipal election of November 7th, 2023, proposed amendments to Article 316, subsections 2 and 6, and Article 317, subsection 3 of the city charter concerning police and fire probationary periods and promotions.
Brief presentation by staff.
Thank you, members of council. Jack Bajork, Deputy City Attorney. As you remember, as presented at the introduction and presented by police representatives, this particular ordinance puts the question before the voters for the November ballot. It does 2 primary things. One is it allows for the extension of a probationary period if a new employee has a leave of absence or is on injury leave for more than 4 weeks, then the probationary period is extended by the length of time of that absence. This allows for the same period of time of actual service to be evaluated as part of that probation. The second thing this first item does is it allows for a chief bypass of a member that would be eligible for a promotion if the chief has a specific articulable reason, and that reason and that bypass is allowed to be, it would be subject to Civil Service Commission review if the applicant for the promotion appealed the decision.
Questions to staff? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. Move to approve 14A.
It's been moved by Councilmember McConnell, seconded by
Mayor, second.
seconded by Councilmember Lawson to approve item number 14A. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, call for the question on the adoption of item number 14A.
Councilmember Bergen,
Yes.
the motion passes to adopt ordinance 2023-21.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 14B.
Item 14B is finalizing ordinance 2023-22, submitting to a vote of the registered electors of the City of Aurora, Colorado at the regular municipal election of November 7th, 2023, proposed amendments to Article 316, Section 10 of the City Charter concerning hiring and training of lateral police officers and firefighters.
Brief presentation.
Thank you again. This item changes the requirement for eligibility for a lateral police officer from a hard and fast 5 years with the city to 3 years with the city, as long as they've had 2 additional years, some comparable experience somewhere else. It also allows for the fire department to have a lateral-only fire academy that is already allowed by the police.
Questions of staff? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor.
Councilmember Bergen.
Motion 14B.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bergen, seconded by
Coombs.
Councilmember Coombs to approve item number 14B. Discussion? Seeing none, question before us is the adoption of item number 14B. Call for the question.
Councilmember Lawson, thank you. Councilmember Sundberg. The motion passes to adopt ordinance 2023-22.
Reports. I will have my next town meeting is on, sorry, ouch. I have to come back to this. Is on July, I'll come back to the date. Councilmember Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to give my legislative update. The House and Senate are slowly moving forward with the appropriations process, and we should know more about our congressional direct spending projects in the next few weeks. The new $38.5 billion Colorado state budget is set to kick in July 1st. City-supported legislation, Senate Bill 2397, motor vehicle theft, which will no longer base motor vehicle theft penalties on the value of the vehicle, also goes into effect July 1st. Several of my colleagues, including the mayor, attended the Colorado Municipal League. I was in charge of doing the elections and also sat on a panel called Aurora Approach to Youth Violence, so it was a very good conference. It was CML's 100th anniversary conference, so it was held at the Gaylord. So it was good to see everyone at our host city, and we had a lot of attendees as well. And the mayor did speak on many panels as well. The next advisor meeting will be Friday, July 21st at 1 p.m. And I do want to thank all of the constituents that did attend the the at-large council meeting, at-large town hall a couple weeks ago. So I appreciate your being there and being supportive of the council members. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem Gardner.
No report.
Councilmember Jurinsky.
Yeah, thank you. I attended the annual Accelerate Colorado trip put on by Aurora Economic Development. And this was a great trip. There was a lot brought up that would truly be beneficial to Aurora. And I have to say that my colleague, Councilmember Zvonek, is very humble, and he won't say it, but he asked for good funding and made a really, really solid point about funding for homeless shelters, and I hope that we get follow-up on that. And then last night, I attended a night of remembrance where Oscar Sladek was the speaker, a Holocaust survivor himself, and it was really awesome, really impactful, and thank you to the DEI office for putting that on. And then lastly, if anyone is considering adopting an animal, I urge you, I beg you to go to the Aurora Animal Shelter and check out the animals there. Our shelter is in pretty bad shape right now.
Councilmember Zvonik.
No report.
Councilmember Murillo. Councilmember Sundberg.
Thank you, sir. Just want to say, Washington, D.C. was a fruitful trip. CML was enjoyable, lots of connections. I have a town hall on July 20th with my co-host here, Danielle Jurinsky. We will be talking about public safety. Chief Acevedo will be there to answer questions. Talk about open space. Open space is prevalent in Ward 2. Lots of animals and great trails. And budget presentation. July 20th, Thursday, Central Rec Center, 6:30 p.m. Thank you.
Councilmember Medina.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just a couple things. We had a couple community events I went to in my ward. One at Sierra Ridge Community Event, another at Terrence Park Apartments, looking at getting people together around safety. The events were pretty well attended. There was a lot of residents there getting to know each other and then talking about different things there, so those went well. We have another one with Mayor as well, Friday at Lansing Elementary to talk about some things going on around safety there in my ward. And then my next town hall will be August 2nd. I'm not having one in July, just due to vacation. August 2nd, and we'll see what we have on my agenda. Thank you.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next Ward 4 meeting is going to be on Thursday, July 13th at 6:30 p.m. at Colorado Early Colleges, so that's at 1400 South Abilene. We're going to be joined by our Open Space Board for a presentation and discussion about the importance of preserving our open spaces and wild places, followed by a recap of the 31st Annual Congress of the New Urbanism. So I hope to see you all there, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Councilmember Coombs.
Thank you, Mayor. My next town hall will be on Tuesday, June 18th at 6 p.m. at the Central Rec Center, and that will also be a hybrid meeting, so folks can join virtually if needed. I did also have the pleasure to spend some time with our staff last week for a Pride Month luncheon at the People's Building, where we also were able to experience the immersive art exhibit there by the Catamounts, which unfortunately now has ended. And then we did have an Aurora Pride meeting this last week as well, planning for our event at the Aurora Reservoir on August 5th, so it's the first Saturday in August. And that's, as per usual, all-day event, beach party, family-friendly, and we are planning to add some more family activities as well as bring the stage closer to the vendors and increase the number of food vendors available this year. So very much looking forward to that event and hope that my colleagues will join. I appreciate all of you in supporting the city's sponsorship of Aurora Pride as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Bergen.
You're me, Member Bergen.
I was talking to myself. Thank you, Mayor. I was at the press conference where we talked about the safety of fireworks. This was done in conjunction with the Aurora Fire Rescue at Station 14, as well as TNT Fireworks and some other officials. But basically, the message was we had the Bucket Brigade. I'm a member of the Bucket Brigade, and it was all about making sure that you dispose of your fireworks safely and that you are considerate of your neighbors and understand some of the fears that they may have with their pets and so forth. So it was a really good press conference. And again, want to emphasize to please celebrate safely for the 4th of July. And then also the Opioid 9 Governance Board that I'm on, we are in the final stages of evaluating the RFPs. And that will be for the first 2 years. We have another tranche of money coming for the remaining 16 years that I'll talk about down the road. And then I also participated in the Accelerate Colorado Business Mission trip, and I advocated for Buckley Space Force Base on keeping our runway viable and then upgrading our F-15s or getting new F-35s, and also about the substation that needs the needed funding. And then also just making sure that we advocate to keep Space Command in Colorado. The feedback we got from several of the congressmen was that they couldn't tell us for sure, but they felt pretty confident it was going to stay in Colorado. So fingers crossed. And then lastly, I was at CML and then I got sick. So I had to leave early. That's my report.
Get well soon. Found the date. So my next town hall meeting will be on July 15th at the Aurora Central Library starting at 2 o'clock. And we will cover we have a presentation on the consent decree, have a presentation by APD, and have a presentation by myself on our policies going forward for those experiencing homelessness. Had a great, I do public safety visits every month, and so I did DART earlier in the month, Direct Action Response Team, where the group I was with was tracking. They have trying to remember the name of the system. It's a dart that shoots out so a vehicle can close behind another vehicle, a vehicle that's stolen, and fire a dart that will stick on the vehicle, and that's a tracker system. It's Star Tracker is the name of the system, and so they were able to do that, and then we followed this vehicle for a long time in Denver, from Aurora into Denver, and then finally it pulled into a parking lot on South Broadway, and the person got out, and the members of the DART team, police officers, descended on the person right away and was able to arrest the individual without incident. I then went with Falk last Saturday, our ambulance service, for 4 hours, and we had 2 emergency calls. I think an individual who was unfortunately on drugs, believed to be crystal methamphetamine, who was walking down the middle of a street and in a dangerous position with traffic, and was just experiencing a mental health crisis, probably due to the drug addiction, and she had to be taken in to the emergency room at UC Health. And then the second one was an altercation or a fight in the vicinity of a pool in an apartment building, and so there were some injured that had to be transported, and that went to Aurora South. I'm very impressed with the professionalism of the paramedic and the emergency medical technician that I was with. And Star Chase is the name of it. Chief Acevedo is obviously watching us, and so he just texted me. Star Chase is the name of the system. With that, the regular meeting of the Aurora City Council is adjourned.